Well, shalom to all of you who are watching, and Shabbat shalom to those that are celebrating Shabbat today as Yahuah's feast. I pray everybody's doing well and fantastic. I'm Raphayahu. I'm one of the co-hosts uh, to the study of the Melchizedek Study Group, and I co-host this platform with Brandon Muchmore. And we are actually right now on a series called Search Out a Matter. So this basically is got to do with thematic topics that are sometimes a little bit difficult to understand. And a lot of it is just because we've been blinded through doctrines. And so what we would do, we just search out the word and just allow the scripture to interpret itself and extrapolate or extract whatever comes out and be edified by it. And of course, we see this through the lenses of covenant, of Torah, and of course the priesthood that we're under, which is the Melchizedek priesthood. So I pray that everyone will have or will be edified by this teaching. It's about tithing. Okay, tithing. It's been a subject that there are so many diverse opinions about it. You have people that say, well, no, that's done away with. You don't have to do it anymore. There are some that, yeah, you still have to do it, and so we just wanted to get down to the truth of the matter, and is it applicable to us today under the order of Melchizedek? So we're going to go ahead and get the scriptures out, and hopefully we can go ahead and extract the truth through all the smoke. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And okay, and I'm going to try to make this a little bit larger so everybody can see it. Let's see here. Okay, hopefully that's a little bit better. Down a notch. Okay, all right. All right, so we have, so we're going to go ahead and start when it was first mentioned, just trying to get a foundation of what this word is all about, why tithing was actually given. And then we're going to go ahead and proceed with some really nice discoveries, like the 5 times through Torah that tithing is mentioned, and what its purpose. Okay, so we start off with Genesis 14:20. And blessed be Elohim, the Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand, and he gave him a tithe. And that's Strong's number 4643 of all. Okay, when we see that the tithe was given in declaration here of gratitude, right? We see this is when Abraham gave a tenth of all that he had after his victory against the confederacy of the 4 Mesopotamian kings in attempt to rescue Lot. Now this tithe came right after Melchizedek declared victory over Abraham's enemies and blessed him. Now, the Melchizedek order was established long before the Levitical priesthood came into the scene. The very first kingdom was ruled by Adam here on the earth, who was a priest and who was created from the dust of the earth. And through his lineage, other priests came forth, such as Seth, Methuselah, Noah, Shem, the king of Salem, who lived 502 years after the flood. Abraham knew Shem for about 150 years. Now, if you turn to the Targum Jonathan and Genesis chapter 14, you can get a additional context of who this Melchizedek character is in the book of Genesis. Here it reads on verse 18, and Melchizedek, or the king of righteousness, who was Shem, son of Noah, the king of Jerusalem, came forth to meet Abraham and brought forth to him bread and wine. And at that time, he ministered before Eloah. La. So as we see here, that Shem was under the Targum, which is more of a commentary to the Bible, that was who the Assyrians were given. It was written in a form of a like a sister of Hebrew that allows others to understand in a little bit more detail what the books of the prophets were about, what the Torah was about, and the writings as well. So what parallels do we see here between Shem, the righteous king, the Melchizedek of Salem, and Yahushua HaMashiach? So I found it interesting that they both, of course, served Yahuwah as a father, but they're both the firstborn sons. Shem from Noah, firstborn of an earthly father, and Yahushua begotten of our heavenly Father, firstborn of all creation. What I really also like about this is that as Egypt, and this is something that I ran into as I was doing the study, as Israel, the firstborn sons that came out of Egypt, okay, Yahuwah, according to Numbers, ended up what? They were purchased by 5 shekels. So 5 to me, I mean, I've seen over and over, there's a 5 is related to redemption. So we see that there's a purchase that came right after coming out of Egypt. Yahusha, by his blood, we were purchased, but coming out of Egypt, the firstborn sons, they were purchased with 5 shekels. So this is a way that we become a possession unto Yahuwah. He said, "You are my special possession, my treasured possession. We belong to Him, and all this earth belongs to Him." But once we make that declaration, we understand that all belongs to Him. We become more and more thankful and grateful of the things He provides. And this has a lot to do with what a tithe has to do with. Okay. Now, both Shem and Yahushua served as righteous kings and priests. Shem ruled in Salem, the earthly Jerusalem. Yahushua ruled and reigned over the clouds in Jerusalem above. Both are kings of peace. Priestly offerings of bread and wine to Abraham. Yahushua gave bread, his body, and wine, his blood, to his disciples. Now, the Melchizedek priesthood is a higher order than the priesthood under the order of Aaron. Hebrews 7, verse 9 reads, "Even Levi, who received tithes, paid tithes through Abraham, so to speak, for he was still in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him." Now, as we can see, there is a greater, the Melchizedek, and there's a lesser, who were the priests under Aaron. So Aaron didn't even exist when the Melchizedek was on the scene, when Abraham spoke with, Shem. Okay, so there is a priesthood, okay, that required, which was the Levitical, an earthly sacrificial system that was implemented after the sin of the golden calf. But then there was the Melchizedek priesthood that transcends both time and space, as it was established before Levi and will endure forever. Now, we also see the tithes sanctioned by kings, okay? This is a tithe that you're not going to see in the 5 books of the Torah, but you saw that sometimes there was a necessity, okay, that the tithe was necessary based on, sometimes scarcity of food and so on. But also, there is kind of a negative connotation when a king imposes a tithe. Okay, King Hezekiah, okay, by the royal command, ordered payment of tithes and had a chamber built in the temple precincts to store the offerings. Okay. Now, throughout historical context, given a portion of one's labor or of the spoils of a war known among a number of nations in antiquity, in Egypt, people gave 2/10 of their harvest to Pharaoh in Genesis 47:24. Now, we see the word tithe appear again in 1 Samuel 8, 14 and 15, in reference to Israel's demand for a king, where they are warned that a king will demand a tithe or eser in Hebrew. So eser, there's two ways you can find this in the Masoretic text. One is maser and one is eser. One is of a tenth and the other one's more of a 10. And you can also add to that 10, 11, 12. So eser merely means 10 or a tenth. Now, most kings follow the principle of charging a tax of 10% of one's earning. In fact, is where the dispute in the New Testament over paying taxes to the Roman government started, because the Pharisees called the eser the tenth or the tithe when the Roman government demanded a tenth of one's own earnings. Okay. Now, we have also in the Greek, it's called apodekato or dekatu in Greek. So the 10th, this is very interesting, as I was actually checking out this number with more scrutiny. And this is amazing. I was finding out so much about 10 and what does it represent. And I think hopefully you'll be edified by this. Now, the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Yod, and it is related to hand. So in allusion to the Hebrew of this letter, in post-biblical Hebrew, it has the numerical value of 10, as in tenth or tithing. It is associated with handing something to another. By raising our two hands, we can count the accumulation of 10 fingers. Hand and extension does the work or action according to the desire of the heart, igniting an action, becoming apparent, obvious, or physical. Yod is also defined as the name. As we know, the name of the son of Noah is Shem in Hebrew. Now, if we were to count the generations from Adam to Shem, we would reach 10 generations. From Adam to Seth is 1 generation. From Seth to Enosh is 2 generations until we get to Noah. And from Noah to Shem is 10 generations. Now, this is not a coincidence. Yah has a reason for everything. Additionally, the Yod represents the method by which the blessings descend from Elohim to his people, from the Most High, from up above. These blessings from Yahuah have been seen throughout the scriptures when the tithing was given, teaching us that Yahuah's blessings don't only reside in heaven, but flow down with grace to his covenant chosen people to endow us with physical health. We get sustenance, success, and protection. The Yod represents a hand. It also is an allusion to Elohim. For we say that Yahuah took us out of Egypt with what? A mighty hand. Lastly, we have the name Yahuah, the tetragrammaton, which is Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. Yod is the very first letter here. So that, even though it is the smallest out of all the 22 in the Hebrew alphabet, it has honored the hand, who is Yahusha, to save us. And so it is also represents modesty. Okay. It also symbolizes wisdom, and it illustrates this by being small, like a small quantity of truly wise individuals. So we see here Jacob. There is a tithe. The second time we see this word come about. On Genesis 28:20, it reads, and Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if Elohim will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and I will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come back to my father's house in peace, then Yahuah shall be my Elohim. Genesis 28:22. And the stone which I have set for a pillar shall be Elohim's house. And of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give him a tenth unto thee. We see here again, a tithe is connected with provision and just being really, truly grateful for it, for what he's going to be able to do for him. And that is to get him back to the land, right? I mean, how many things did he have to go through, you know, with Esau and all these things, but he got him back, you know, and that is what Yahuah does. He provides, you know, and it's all associated with acknowledging that he has given you all things, and all we have to do is in gratefulness know and acknowledge where all these things that we have come from, and then we'll be able to, with a grateful heart, offer an offering to Yah, the best of the best and not the last. So we have here Jacob was fleeing. Esau promised the amount to God or Yahuah in an event that Yahuah proposed to him. We have the declaration when tithing. We also hear of a declaration. Jacob, fleeing from his brother Esau, promised a tenth of all, and with his plea was provided for and directed his ways, his feet, so he may return to his father's house in peace. Okay. And as we go through some of these scriptures, and you're going to see more and more how tithing is connected with Yahuwah's blessing upon your life. Now, the first time the tithe is specifically mentioned is in the book of the law with more details, right? By Yahuwah in Leviticus 23, 30 through 33. And all the tithe of the land and the seed of the land of the fruits of the tree belong to Yahuwah. It is a set apart to Yahuwah. If a man indeed redeems any of his tithes, he adds 1/5 to it, an entire tithe of the herd and of the flock. All that passes under the rod, the 10th one, is set apart to Yahuwah. He does not inquire whether it is good or spoiled, nor does he exchange it. If he exchanges it at all, then both of it and the one exchanged for it is set apart. It is not redeemed. Now, in this portion of scriptures, Yahuwah mentions that the tithe or the tenth of everything, whether seed, fruit, herd, flock, whatever, that the people of Israel procures from the land, which Yahuwah provides for them, is considered set apart, holy, and may not be redeemed. All the tenths belong to Yahuwah. In this passage, we see that all that passes under the rod, the 10th one, is set apart to Yahuwah. Isn't that interesting? Any part of the flock and whether it's sheep, oxen, any animal that passed through the narrow gate, one by one, a person stood by while holding up the rod by the hand, covered with an orc, orange and yellow in color. And as the animals would pass by, the herder would mark every 10th one. This method of counting sheep is seen in Jeremiah 13, and Ezekiel 20:37. In Ezekiel 20:37, it reads, I will make you pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. Love it how here Yahuwah takes the herd of the sheep, because he is our shepherd, we are his sheep, and now he is helping us realize that he is the one that's going to protect us. And this is a prophetic allusion to what we're going to be going through being part of his bride. Now, this is a prophecy of Yahuwah restoring Israel back to the land where all will worship him. Even other nations have to do that. As we read within the context of this prophecy, we find that the hand of Yahuwah, the Yod, remember the Yod, the hand, the 10th letter of the Aleph Bet, rescuing Israel, who is Yahusha, to the wilderness as Yahuwah did with our forefathers out of Egypt. Then we see Yahusha counting his sheep as he marks them with his rod and sets those apart who will be entering the land. Those who don't have the mark of Yahuwah by no means will enter. Ezekiel 20:33, it says, as I live, says Yahuwah Elohim, surely with my mighty hand, the Yod, with an outstretched arm, And with a fury poured out, I will rule over you. I will bring you out of the peoples and gather you out of the countries where you are scattered. With a mighty hand, with a stretched out arm, with fury poured out, and I will bring you into the wilderness of the people. And there I will plead my case with you face to face, just as I pleaded my case with your forefathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So I will plead my case with you, says Elohim, Yahuah Elohim. Verse 37, I will make you pass under the rod. I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. I will purge the rebels from among you and those who transgress against me. I will bring them out of the country where they will dwell, but they shall not, I'll repeat that again, they shall not enter the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am Yahuah. So as that narrower and narrower road gets narrower and people are just falling to the left and the right, and hopefully, he said that none of his grain will not hit the ground, but he knows exactly who those grains are. My point is that it is a narrow road, it is a narrow path, and when those sheep went through that gate one by one, it wasn't just like all came in at the same time. It was one at a time, and they were right behind one another, and he chose them as they were being selected. And so as we count all the places in the Torah, we can determine that there are not one, but 5 types of tithes, and some with specific ordinances. Now let us take a look at these 5 types of tithes so we may open up our understanding about them. The first one, and we went over somewhat already, is the priestly tithe under the order of Melchizedek. So we had the Abraham's tithe to the Melchizedek was the payment offering that reflected Abraham's regard for the Melchizedek priest as of the true Elohim. Tithing is implemented by first bringing the best of the harvest. And as we can see here, these they don't go into too much detail in the Exodus 22 because it's all part of covenant, Exodus 23:16 and Exodus 23:19. But we'll see more detail about these on Deuteronomy 26. And if you look at the language, it's all connected with tithing from here to here, Deuteronomy 26. So it gives you more expansion on that. So then we had the Levitical tithe, right? So the Levitical, as we know, they were giving, or they were ordained as priests, okay, after the golden calf. Now the tribe of Levi did not have an inheritance of the land, okay? Their inheritance was Yahuah. Levites were only given cities to live in, but not to own them particular. Instead, each of the portions of the land divided amongst them came from other tribes. Now, this commonly well-known tithe was to be brought forth by Israel, all tribes, and was to be given to the Levites. They took care of the temple, they made repairs when needed, they served as musicians, singers, and doorkeepers. The prophet Samuel and the sons of Korah, who were musicians at King David's courts, are examples of Levites, who were descendants of Kohath, one of the 3 sons of Levi. Now, this tithe was set apart by Yahuah as an inheritance for the Levites in return for the work which they performed, the work of the tabernacle meeting. This commandment was to give a tithe to the Levites, was actually recorded in the book of Nehemiah. So whatever was left was stored in a treasury according to 2 Chronicles 31. Now, according to Deuteronomy 12:19, Yahuah warns Israel not to forsake Levi for as long as they are in the land. In Nehemiah's absence, Judah violated this Torah by withholding the tithes to the Levites. But when Nehemiah came back, their offerings were restored. Now, it was during Nehemiah's absence when Malachi indicated those in the kingdom of Judah for not, or actually he indicted, okay, those in the kingdom of Judah for not paying their tithes. Now, this happened after they traveled back to Jerusalem, after their Babylonian, and then after their Persian captivity. Now, there are considerations about what Yahuah thinks when one doesn't pay tithes. Okay, well, Malachi, you can see this in Malachi chapter 1, chapter 3. Will a man rob Elohim? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, wherein have we robbed you? In tithes and offerings? You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring you all the tithes in the storehouses, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now wherewith, says Yahuah of hosts, if I will not open up your windows of heaven and pour out our blessings, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Okay. And I will rebuke the devourer from your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruits before the time in the field, says Yahuah of hosts. So obviously Yahuah will bless you, and the land that you live in, if a tenth, is reserved for his purpose. It's all his anyway. So he's just helping you realize, look, thank me. That's what the whole tithe is about. It's about giving him thanks so he can give you more. And he will, according to his word, he will produce even more. But you got to acknowledge the source first, and then the source will give. Okay? Because as you can see here, he says, if I will not open up the windows of heaven, and I will not pour out the blessings, that there shall be no room enough to receive it. So basically, it's saying that you can receive blessings that you're gonna be, your cup will overfloweth. You'll have no room left for all the blessings he can pour out on you. But it does require that. Okay. Now, promises attached to tithing. So we also have here on Proverbs 3. Honor Yahuah with your possessions and with the fruits of all your increases, so your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will overflow with new wine. Here's a declaration to Yahuah for protection and provision associated with the tithe. Deuteronomy 26:8. So Yahuah brought us out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm. Here we go again. Tithe is associated with being delivered, okay, and being provided for. With great terror and with signs and wonders, he brought us out to a place and gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And now I'll bring the first fruit of your soil. He has given me. Place the basket before Yahuah your Elohim and bow down before him. Then you and the Levites and the foreigners residing among you shall rejoice in all the good things that Yahuah your Elohim has given you in your household. Okay, so we see the association between blessings and tithing. So the third one out of the five is the tithe given to the Aaronic priest. Now, all the Levites were not priests. Okay, only the sons of Aaron were priests. Other Levites, yes, they did have work and around the temple, and they had other types of duties, but priests only came from the line of Aaron. Now, only in the line of Aaron could be appointed as priest. Even Yochanan the immerser was a descendant from the lineage of Aaron, just like his father Zechariah. Now, Yahuah chose Aaron and his sons to be priests in the temple or tabernacle through the generations until the new priesthood was established. Yahuah commanded that the Levites who received the tithe be required to give a tenth of it to the sons of Aaron, the priest of Israel, post, and this is post broken covenant, of course. This was also known as the tithe of tithes. It was the payment that they and their families got for their service that they did in the tabernacle. The tithe of tithes is that the priests who were in the lineage of Aaron received was the best part of the tithe, which was acquired by the tribe of Levites, okay, who served the priest, Aaron. Okay. So we have the third year tithe. Okay. Now, on top of the tithe brought to the Levites, every third year was also called the year of tithing, according to Deuteronomy 26. Every third year, there was a separate tithe which was supposed to be brought and be given to Levi, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. Yahuah is always caring about the widows and the orphans, and that's where our heart should be also. It was basically given to the less fortunate, the poor, and the people who could not fend for themselves also. Now, the tithe is also mentioned by Prophet Amos, who talks about the adulterous Israelites with sarcasm. Now, the tithe separated for Yahuah's appointed feast, or the Moedims. Yahuah's appointed times, which are commonly known as Yahuah's Moedims, which are mentioned in Leviticus 23, require all males to come to Jerusalem 3 times a year, okay, or to the feasts. Okay, I'm only saying Jerusalem because that's where they ended up going to eventually, and it is actually where his name abides. Now, Yahuah specifically commanded those attending the feast to bring their tithes that they themselves would use to celebrate before Yahuah. This was a tithe that was dedicated for rejoicing before him. Now, tithes were supposed to be brought to where his name abides, Yahuah. Under the Aaronic priesthood, the name Yahuah was with the priests in the tabernacle. So anywhere they went, it was where the tithes were brought forth, of course. Yahuah chose to put his name in Jerusalem. So that's where the tithes were given. But if we recall, Jacob was at Bethel when he made a declaration and told Yahuah that he would give them 1/10 of all, not Jerusalem. Now, what does Bethel mean? And it's very significant because we see that in Hebrew, it means the house of El, right? And what does that remind you of? Where he dwells. Where he dwells? In us, in the temple. Now we know that this is the house as we understand it today through the Father's eyes and the understanding of Yahushua who lives in our heart, that the temple is where he resides. And we are that temple, are we not? So it doesn't matter where we're at. We have to give him that 10% as a thank you or a type of a heave offering. Now, there are some that say we should only give him after all our taxes or taken out of only what we have left over. But is that really what he expects of us? Because when they came out of Babylon, okay, or coming out of Babylon back to Jerusalem, and they were, I'm sure they were going through a very difficult time. But Yahuah, and I'm sure many reached poverty because they were captivity. But Yahuah, that didn't stop Yahuah. Yahuah still, they were still basically being judged because of what they were doing. Okay, so that's how important this is. Now, the tithe is first of all, is first of all, not the rest of all. Okay, throughout our Hebraic mindset, we are not to give the least and the last, but we are to give the first and the best, are we not? Now, the giving of a tithe is one's acknowledgement that one is stewards of Yahuah's creation, what he offers us, the land, the fruits of it, family, that we now give our firstborn, everything, that first portion is his. We acknowledge that we are the work and the ones that till the land as Melchizedek priests unto him. Now, I want to finish with Yahushua's word here because Luke 11:42. Here's when he is rebuking the Pharisees, right? Because the Pharisees are limited to just pay their 10th, and yet they forget about the other things that have to do with living a righteous and holy life. And here it says you should have practiced the latter without leaving the former undone. So obviously he's telling you to give a 10th, but don't forget the way it matters. Okay, so it's not saying to don't do tithing. He says you need to focus on the will of the Father. Be gentle, be kind to others, have mercy on the poor. Do the works of a priest, go heal people, whatever it takes, do that as well. and treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. And do all those things. Tithing is great, but it's not all. Okay. So I think Yahusha is basically just reminding us here that there's just a lot more than giving a tenth away. How about giving our life as a sacrificial lamb onto him, as a sacrificial being onto him, and allow this temple, just like a tithe is a way of self-sacrifice, but sacrifice our time, our devotion, and our love with others. Sacrifice. So I'm sorry, sacrifice our time so we may love others, and so that's very important. Okay, so I just wanted to finish with that because as priests, there's so much we can do, and we shouldn't just get stuck in just like a lot of people that came out of the churchianity, just like myself. They think, well, let's just go here on certain day of the week, we'll pay our tithe, and then come back next week, and it's just a cycle, and they think that that's enough for them to get saved. I'm sorry, it's not. It's going to take a holy living and produce good works. So he chooses you and gives you finding you. But most of all, I mean, we have to keep getting washed with his word daily. So our actions are shaped by them. Okay. But anyway, I hope everybody, was able to gain an insight or a blessing out of this. So if anyone has any questions or comments about it, please feel free to ask. Dawood.
Thank you, Raphayahu. That was very enlightening, very informative, and well delivered. This is a topic I think that doesn't get spoken enough to in our time today. But we as followers of Torah, practices of Torah, we just came from a season where we individually paid tithe. And that was through the feast of Sukkot. I'm sorry, Shavuot. And also before that, in the feast of first fruits. And let me read you the scripture here in Leviticus. Let's go down to the Feast of Weeks, and that's going to be in 17th. It says, bring from your dwelling for a wave offering 2 loaves of bread of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour. Now, you mentioned the double tithing that the Levitical priests would get. They would get it from the Levites itself. So could this possibly be a reference to Melchizedek priest today, that we are bringing a double portion before Yahuah? If we look at this festival that we all just walked through, we are rejoicing in the wheat harvest, right? And the wheat harvest here is a picturing or an outpicturing of the final harvest of Yahuah's people. And we are to offer Yahuah 2 loaves baked with 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour and baked with leaven. So we do this twice in this season. We do it at first fruits, and we do it again at Shavuot. So we are practicing this, and now that we look at these things and read it in scriptures, we can see that Yahuah has us rehearsing this annually in our lives today. Many probably wonder, these things that you spoke of were pretty much predominantly Melchizedek and Levitical. And certainly we don't have the Levites with us today in that capacity. So what are we to do with our tithing? For me, the way I've worked this out, where I give, where I get my good, so to speak. All right. So when I come into fellowship with brothers and sisters who are worshiping Yahuah, seeking after the righteousness of Yahushua, then it would be fine and fitting to tie to that. And that's what I do today. And in fact, I'm tithing to Melchizedek. That's walking in the covenant that Abraham acknowledged and walked in.
Correct. Yes. Right. Yeah. So we have there is a the ministry of the priest. I mean, we are priests unto the nations. I mean, Yahuah will establish this more and more as the days will come. But yeah, so we definitely will will start. We have to see a re establishment or more a restoration of this, right? Like the shekels coming back, for example, and the land and all of it. So it's but we are. I mean, if Abraham, paid tithes, if Levi pays through the loins of Abraham to Melchizedek, how much more does the message of a Melchizedek priest does unto the nations, and also the works of a priest is to tend the poor and the widows and these things as well. So tithes can be dispersed, we as priests as needed. But the important thing is that we just have to do it with a thankful heart, and we do it with gratitude that this is all His, and He's just and we just have to give Him that first of all. And I do believe, based on what I have seen with Cain and Abel, that Cain gave him just the fruits of the land, but Abel gave him the first. So there's a difference between just giving him whatever and giving him the best of your best, or giving him the first, because he deserves it, and that's why I believe one was rejected, Cain's, and one was accepted, Abel's offering. Because that's what, and I don't think any of that has changed. None of that has changed. We still have to give them the best of our best. I'm going to go ahead before I get your the next question, though. I'm going to go ahead and just stop the video here so everybody can join in and please. And by the way, if you're watching this video till now, thank you for watching. If y'all want to join us live and just just get immersed in more discussions, please feel free to join us at live. Okay, and you can connect at torchofthetribes.com/connect and just sign up, and we'll be happy and blessed to see you all here. All right, shalom.